Sarvasthanandaji is the minister in charge, Ramakrishna Vedanta Centre, Bourne End, Buckinghamshire, near London. He is also the editor of bi-monthly Vedanta published from that center. Swamiji was blessed by spiritual initiation by Srimad Swami Veereshwaranji Maharaj in 1983 and joined the Ramakrishna order at its headquarters at Belur Math in February 1987. Since June 1987, he served Sri Ramakrishna Ashrama Rajkot in India in various capacities for more than 30 years. He served in the center's publication department for nearly 25 years and was the editor of Gujarati monthly Sri Ramakrishna Jyot for nearly 17 years. He offered his services in several major relief activities and rehabilitation projects since 1987 in Gujarat. He also served as the head of the Ramakrishna Rajkot Centre for more than 6 years. Swami Sarvasthanandaji has travelled extensively in the UK and other parts of the Europe and America, preaching the universal message of Ramakrishna Vivekananda, Vedanta, Indians' cultural and spiritual heritage and interfaith harmony. Swami Sarvasthanandaji represented Ramakrishna Mission in an UNESCO conference on youth and their social impact held in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia in May 2017 and also represented the organization again in UNESCO events held in Tunisia and Paris in September and December 2018 respectively. Since June 2017, he has been appointed as one of the 3 official monastic representatives of Ramakrishna Mission to the UNESCO events wherever they are held from time to time in different countries of the world. He has also participated in the Interfaith Peace Conference in Rome, Vatican, in which the Pope presided and the presidents of Italy and France participated, and also in similar events in other parts of Europe. We are very happy, Maharaj, for your presence here and for delivering this special lecture on Upasana for spiritual progress on the behalf of the ashrama and also on the behalf of all the devotees. We heartily welcome you, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
My prostrations at the holy feet of Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Ma Sharda Devi, and Revered Swami Nityasthananji Maharaj, Vireshanji Maharaj, and other Swamis, Brahmacharis, and devotees of Ramakrishna Math Bengaluru. It's a very dear topic and important topic which ought to be primary in our lives. Upasana for spiritual progress, especially the devotees. So there are two things. One is Upasana and what is spiritual progress. So you all know there was an incident that happened on the 1st of January, which is popularly celebrated as the Kalpataru Day. And Sri Ramakrishna gave a blessing to all humanity through some of the devotees who had assembled there in Kashipur on 1st January 1886. In Bengali he said, "Tomader ar ki bolbo, tomader chaitanya hok." So that was the highest blessing Sri Ramakrishna could give to devotees, not only that small group that had gathered, but through them, through the entire world. The awakening of the consciousness, which is also known as spirit. Swami Vivekananda used the word spirit in those days, and word spiritual means actually consciousness, chaitanya. Tomader chaitanya hok. So, Swami Vivekananda once said about what constitutes spiritual progress, what constitutes civilizational progress. So he said that civilization can be called the most progressive, where spirit prevails over matter, because that is more sustainable. It is based on the eternal reality of life. So he gave a wonderful definition. Civilization is the progressive reading of spirit into matter. It appears to be a very simple definition, but that's the core of Indian values, the Indian spiritual and cultural values. Trying to read in our every action, every moment of life, more and more of this Chaitanya or the spirit into our apparently material lives. So trying to progressively read more spirit into matter is Upasana. So that is what Upasana means. Upasana means many things. In a restricted way, it means puja. The worship that we do, whether it is ritualistic worship or worship through prayer, hymns, stotras, japa, everything is Upasana. And in a restricted way, the pujas that we do in the shrine, in our personal shrine, in the temples, in places of worship, different places of worship, that is Upasana. Another meaning, according to the Upanishads, is to sit near. Sit near a deity, sit near a divinity, with or without form, who is very close to us, who is very dear to us, whom we can call as Ishta Devata, which has a name and a form. So Upasana can be of a pratika or a pratima, pratika as in Shivalinga, then Shalagram and other symbols are there, pratika, or symbol like Om. And pratima, the Ishta Devata, a pratima of the Ishta Devata, we worship. Then there are other types of Upasana. One is the very popular Upasana, that is Namopasana, the holy name. You know, in the Bhakti literature of India is full of saints, not only in India but abroad. The repetition of the holy name. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Nam and Nami are abhed. The name and the deity that it represents are the same. In fact, if you see, there are so many songs in Marathi, Abhangas, Kannada, all the different languages. where the Nami or the form of the Ishta, it is rather difficult to visualize. When we do Upasana, it is easy to repeat the name rather than visualize the form by closing the eyes. So we close our eyes and try to imagine the Ishta within our heart or outside, wherever our Guru has told us. But it is a bit easier to do Namopasana. So we begin, or we can continue with Namopasana if we have the faith, as Sri Ramakrishna said, as Holy Mother said. Repeating the name is as good as meditating on his form. Nam or Nami Abhed. Abhed means there is no distinction between the name and form. Ultimately, when we do Upasana, when we make spiritual progress, the name merges into the form and the form merges into the name. They become one. They are one to begin with. They cannot be separated. But because of the agitation of our senses, of the distraction of our mind, we separate the name and form. So Nam, Nami, Abhed, that is, the name and form are inseparably connected. So whether we do Namopasana, we do Pratikopasana, or the form Upasana, Rupa Dhyana, or there are so many types of Upasana listed in not only Hindu tradition, but traditions all over the world use some kind of worship. Upasana can also be translated as worship. As I said, in a restricted sense, it is puja. So Upasana, which is sitting near the divinity or trying to imagine that divinity is within us, it is suffusing all, not only our jivatma or our personality, but also spreading all over the world, everywhere, all over the samsara. That idea of trying to read the pure consciousness or spirit into matter, and that has to be done progressively. That is why Swamiji says it is a progressive reading of spirit into matter. The more we succeed, the more we do Upasana, the more it leads to spiritual progress. That is the basic idea behind all Upasana, that we try to manifest the more and more of that divinity or the more and more of that Chaitanya, and finally attain its culmination when, as Sri Ramakrishna blessed us on that day by saying, Tumhare Chaitanya ho, may your consciousness be awakened fully, so that you realize the divine within as pure consciousness, pure existence and pure bliss. The Sachidananda who has come and is accepting your Upasana either as puja, ritualistic puja, or meditation, Rupa Dhyana, as I said, Pratikopasana, which we can use symbols, pratikas. So that is why when Master Mahashay, who objected, because Brahmos were not so much given to Pratikopasana, so they thought this idol worship, like some of the other people of those days, they used to criticize. In fact, Sri Ramakrishna started his whole sadhana or upasana by doing upasana in a pratika or a pratima upasana. So they used to criticize, and they used to say that we have to tell the people, tell the devotees that they should not ignorantly worship the image, the pratika or the pratima, because it is a material thing, it is superstition. Then Sri Ramakrishna is upset. Why Mrinmayi? That means, why do you say it is material? Can you not see the Chinmayi Ma there? The image, the form of mother that you are supposed to worship. Why do you always imagine? That is just the symbol. But the Chaitanya, the Mrinmayi, has to be considered as Chinmayi, full of Chaitanya, full of consciousness. So all efforts, Swami Vivekananda once writes to his disciples, or to his disciple, I think it was Sister Nivedita, when he says, when he was asked what is his teaching, or what exactly is the message that he wants to give, he said, I don't believe in trying to make the message concise, but if I have to express it in a few words, I would rather say that how to express that divinity, each soul has to express that divinity and make it manifest in every moment of life. So Upasana helps us to awaken the consciousness or Chaitanya, the spirit within, progressively. It doesn't happen in a day, it has to be pursued relentlessly. And there are so many conditions. In fact, if you see, there is a nice book, Puja Paddhati, because many of us understand Upasana as puja. That is the best preferred way for those who are devotees. They think they are sitting near God when they are doing puja, when they are worshipping their Ishta in front of them. But in fact, if you see in that beautiful book, Worship of Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Sarvasthanandaji, of course based on Swami Sarvasthanandaji's immortal book, Sri Ramakrishna Leela Prasanga, or Sri Ramakrishna the Great Master, where he explains there are 5 parts, all of you know, there are 5 parts to this wonderful biography of Sri Ramakrishna. The second part is known as Sadhaka Bhav. In that he explains what sadhana is, what upasana is, and why we should study the life of Sri Ramakrishna as a sadhaka, which has not been done, which has not been given so much importance in other incarnations. They project the incarnation as a redeemer, as a guru. So there is Guru Bhav, there are 2 volumes, Guru Bhav Purvardha, Guru Bhav Uttarardha, and then we have the divine Bhava, that is the Divya Bhav is there. So these 3 parts are important, but the need for Sadhaka Bhava of Sri Ramakrishna's life, that portion of his life, where as a sadhaka, as an ideal upasaka, he showed us the different ways and means of realizing this divinity within, awakening the consciousness within. So it is imperative for all devotees to read that thoroughly, that book, Sri Ramakrishna Leela Prasanga, if we have to understand. Because the whole idea of the divine Leela of Sri Ramakrishna was to take the man from whichever level he is to the highest divinity. So he underwent all these spiritual practices for our sake, to show how different paths have evolved over a period of time, different upasanas. There's not one single upasana, there are so many thousands of ways according to different traditions, different countries, different religions, different prophets, different saints, innumerable ways. That is why he wanted to show that each one of those paths, Sri Ramakrishna, that is his uniqueness. He could have performed upasana according to one particular path and realized the goal of life, awakened the consciousness within. In fact, through pure yearning, his first realization, first vision of the Divine Mother, where he was engulfed by light, the first vision he had, that was enough. He didn't have to practice all the other sadhanas. But there is an important reason which Sarvasthanandaji says, while explaining the sadhaka bhava, he says he did it to show that each of these paths, whichever path you choose, whichever method you choose, because throughout the spiritual history of mankind, different paths and methods and upasanas have evolved right from the Vedas. For example, if you take the word upasana in the Vedas, which was in the earlier Vedas, if you see, it was karma kanda. A lot of karma kanda, so many rituals, Vedic rituals were done, and as part of that, as part of the entire ritual, there was something which was known as Angava Baddha Upasana. Means Upasana was a small portion of the whole ritual of yajna and so many ahutis and other things, which later, as time passed by, it became concretized into homa or the puja paddhatis that we normally practice. Of course, there were different ideas, different methods of upasana introduced by the tantras. So Ramakrishna Upasana, as understood in the Ramakrishna order, is a wonderful synthesis of this Vedic idea of upasana, or vidyas as they called. It had a different connotation, but as time passed, newer and newer methods were found out by people based on their own spiritual experience. You see, they are not intellectual discoveries or academic explanations of upasana. They are experiences, as Swami Vivekananda says in that beautiful small biography which he wrote on Sri Ramakrishna and Hindu Dharma, a small booklet. He says Sri Ramakrishna deliberately discarded external forms of learning, and by that he means even the Vedas and other scriptures, the study of the scriptures, which is supposed to be mandatory according to the Jnana Marga to understand the ideas of upasana. And he says Sri Ramakrishna deliberately discarded all kinds of formal learning to show that in the purified mind of rishis or individuals or sadhakas or upasakas, the eternal truths, eternal consciousness spontaneously reveals itself. And that is how these great discoveries, you may say spiritual scientists, who experimented, and that is how, starting from the Vedas, the ancient Vedas, the ritualistic Vedas where upasanas were also done, there was this tantras, another field which had a great contribution to make. The idea of Kundalini, idea of the gradual progressive rise of the spirit within, from the Mooladhara to the Sahasrara. These are all wonderful concepts. And Sri Ramakrishna came to just practice all of them. And without any scholarly academic background, without any formal learning, it is possible that through upasana and upasana alone and through yearning, one can experience these great truths. He explained them in his own ways. Of course, the other gurus came, Bhairavi Brahmani, who trained, who made him go through the 64 different tantras, which is another way, another pathway to progressively, you may say, read more and more spirit into matter. So Swamiji's definition is a universal definition. Whichever religion, whichever path we follow, have you manifest that spirit which is within? So Swami Ashokanandji in the West, because this is a very difficult concept, all the ritualistic puja and all the traditions, so many complicated ideas that have evolved. So Swami Vivekananda says in this small booklet, practically people were confused. The true spirit of religion was lost because they found these pathways, some of the pathways conflicting with each other, the fanatical adherence to their own pathway, thinking that other pathways cannot help you. There was a conflagration. Swamiji says the time when the advent of Sri Ramakrishna was at a time when people were quarreling over the unessentials of upasana, saying that this upasana alone will lead you. It was a fanatical approach because there was no true, there was no progressive reading of that spirit into matter when they did upasana. So they quarreled over inessentials. And he says Sri Ramakrishna incarnated to show the midst of all these diverse upasanas, what is the central theme, what is the core of spiritual upasana which needs to be understood and practiced and experienced. And based on that experience, we have a wonderful sadhaka life that sadhaka bhava, Swami Sarvasthanandaji has elaborately discussed. In that, explaining the importance of the puja that Sri Ramakrishna did, which is of course a combination of many systems of upasana. In that puja, he says, in the tantras, it is said that we have to raise, when we first start doing puja, we have to raise and imagine that the jivatma goes up, the spiritual power that is, it's maybe imagination to begin with, but it goes to the Sahasrara, unites with the Paramatma there, which is the goal of life. And till such thing happens, till it really happens as an experience, we need to do external puja. So then the worshipper or the upasaka brings that divine, brings the jivatma and then establishes himself, that who, and it takes the form of the Ishta. And then that Ishta, through various steps, if you see there are so many steps, apart from the purificatory, Shuddhikarana and so many things, the whole upasana is the goal of all upasana is to divinize this material body, to read more and more spirit. So we begin with the Achmana also, where we invoke Vishnu, who purifies our interior and the exterior. So, and then we invoke the Lord or the Ishta, who has taken that particular form for our sake, because we cannot comprehend the highest reality, Satchidananda. He comes in that form, you invoke him and then establish him, and with all the paraphernalia we do puja, we do upasana as it is popularly understood. But in every step, this idea, Brahma Sadbhava, is not forgotten. In the Tantras they say, it is that Brahma Sadbhava has to be the core idea behind all our rituals, and extending that further in all our activities. For example, the wonderful Saundarya Lahari of Shankaracharya, how beautifully he says, all the actions that I do, is it not a puja, is it not an upasana? It's a big, great, grand upasana, great worship, as Swamiji said. A grand worship is going on all the time. Our every activity is an upasana. So you see the spirit in Saundarya Lahari, Shankaracharya says, even my prattling, whatever silly things I talk, oh mother, please forgive me, please consider that as reciting your name. It may be a trivial thing, but if we have that feeling, if we have that bhavana, that even whatever we utter, because we are in our secular lives, in our so-called secular life, there are many things which we have to do which cannot be termed as upasana. But Saundarya Lahari says, oh mother, please, whatever prattle that I indulge in throughout the day, let it be a recitation of your name. Whatever I do, my hands do, I don't know the mudras. I am not aware of all the mudras. I can't worship you using all the mudras that have been evolved. So whatever actions I do in my daily life, the karma that I perform, all the actions and movements of my fingers, please consider them to be mudras and accept that. Accept that as a upasana. So whole life becomes, by extension, nothing but an upasana. And in fact, the central idea, if you read this book, Swami Sarvasthanandaji says, Devo Bhutva Devam, that we have to convert our body every day. It's a process, it's a renewable process. It's not that it's going to happen immediately. Every day we have to renew that process and consider ourselves more and more pure. And then so many rituals, we really don't understand why we have to do so many things. But each one of them has a significance. This upasana as puja, where we try to divinize or try to infuse that pure consciousness or divya chetana in every part of our body. So we do nyasa, there are so many things that we do even before we start our real upasana, which is meditation. Before coming to dhyana and the real part of puja, there are so many rituals. So that is why Swamiji knew that. So he says it is a progressive reading of spirit into matter. We start, but at the same time, the tantras say that Brahma Sadbhava, that everything is Brahman. Even the prayer that we do, in fact, before the upasana, we have to pray for the welfare of everyone. Because pray for peace, there are so many Shanti mantras. Pray for the welfare of others. Let all beings be happy, let all beings be peaceful. Because that's only possible when there is this Brahma Sadbhava. When you have that feeling that it's the all-pervading Brahman. So there's no, that feeling, if that idea is impressed upon our minds as part of our upasana, then the love for humanity, that it's not just out of compassion for the suffering people. It's just because we see the infinite spirit full of bliss. That's why when most of these great singers, Shakti songs that you see in Ram Prasad and others, they always saw the Divine Mother as Anandamayi, full of bliss. So we project that bliss. That's the only way you can make yourself happy. Swamiji says in his Raj Yoga, the more you pray for others, the more you think that pray for others to be happy, that's the best way to make yourself happy. So subjectively you will find that divinity or that the divine within yourself, that is the Ishta, who is of the nature, who is Satchidananda condensed, he enables us to see that bliss within and projecting it outside. So these prayers are full of meaning, and all the nyasa and all the mantras that we utter. You see, the tantras gave us some wonderful ideas of bija, which are not random sound symbols. They purify. Even the mantras that we recite, all the alphabets are purified. So you see the whole process. In fact, if you see our upasana or puja, the ritualistic puja, the first 15 to 16 steps is just to divinize, to make everything pure. Because Swami Sarvasthanandaji says in this Sadhak Bhava, the idea is that the senses which have a tendency to be distracted and to be very much go outward, as Nachiketa was told by Yama, that our tendency to go outward is what leads to misery. The Lord has literally killed us, Paranchikyani Vyatunat Swayambhu. So it's a great challenge to think of ourselves as a spirit and stop this, you may say, the commotion, that is the senses which are always trying to drag us outward. That is impurity. Purity is trying to refine the senses. That is why the Shuddhikarana and all the steps in puja is to enable us to see this divine within as a preparation before dhyana and before establishing the Lord within, meditating on the Lord within, and then doing puja to our heart's content. And then finally the step which is known as Visarjana, which is the final culmination, where you give up the gross so that the subtle is established in our hearts. That's the main idea, because that is how we divinize the whole, the whole movements and all the activities that we do. So each one of them is designed in such a way in Upasana that we progressively try to see more and more of the divine spirit, more and more of the divinity, both within and without, in every step that is emphasized. So Upasana as puja, Upasana as worship, being near to God, that is one way, and then finally it culminates in the establishing the Lord in the heart, which is the goal of all sadhana in every tradition. Even in the Christian tradition, you say it's the prayer of the heart. So the awakening of the buddhi, which is another, progressively we go from the physical body, the different koshas, we transcend it. We go to the Annamaya kosha, Pranamaya kosha, then we go to the Manomaya kosha, then try to establish our consciousness in the Vijnanamaya kosha, which is awakening of the buddhi. And that is how progressively this upasana leads us from gross or from matter to the spirit. So it's an eternal process which continues, and we use different techniques, as I said. Each one is, if it is done with sincerity, with yearning, spiritual yearning, it will lead to the goal. Now coming to the Upasana as popularized by the Ramakrishna movement, in the Ramakrishna movement, specifically coming to that, Sri Ma Sharda Devi gave a very simple Upasana when she, that Mahavakya of hers, Japat Siddhi. So Japa is another way, or it is known as also Namopasana. And as I said before, our bhakti literature is full of songs where, because Nam and Nami are Abhed, the devotee or the poet goes to the extent of saying that I am happy if I repeat your name, I don't want, because visualizing the form may be difficult. So he is upset that he is the form or the true nature of the Ishta is not revealed to him. But he said, I don't care, because I know someday or the other this repetition of the name will take me to the form which are eternally united. Thakur very clearly said, Nam and Nami Abhed. So with faith, Holy Mother Sri Sharda Devi gave us a wonderful technique, said Japat Siddhi. In fact, a few of the devotees I heard, I was a bit amused when they said something very funny. They said, because all the people, the devotees who used to go to Holy Mother were illiterate women, they were not fit enough to do Jnana Sadhana, study Vedanta and all their. That is why Mother gave as a consolation that you do japa and you will get siddhi. So it is a simplified or it's a simple sadhana. There are better sadhanas which we can do. Will japa lead to siddhi? But these are Holy Mother's words, Japat Siddhi. She has not said it only for these women. I was wondering why it should be applied only to illiterate village women, because they cannot do the other sadhana. It's not like that. It in itself, Holy Mother herself is a living example of how japa leads to siddhi. You see, she herself used to say, like the ticking of the clock, you just repeat. Don't bother where it leads you, or don't try to judge. Some people used to ask, we have been doing japa for such a long time and we feel that we have reached nowhere. Have we really made spiritual progress? So Holy Mother said, it's not good to judge yourself, or you have faith in the name and knowing fully well that Nam and Nami are Abhed, they are not different. You see where it will lead you to the goal. Thakur also gave a wonderful example. He gave the example of the links of a chain. A big log which is not seen, which is submerged in the river, is tied to the bank with a big chain. You see, such a wonderful example he has given. How japa leads to siddhi. So he says our job is to go hold one link and go to the next link, and then have faith that this chain is connected to the log. If you want to reach the log, you have to just go from one link to the other, and that chain will lead you to whatever reality. It will reveal the real nature of your Ishta. That itself is a great upasana. According to Holy Mother, she made it a primary sadhana, repetition of the holy name, through the so many innumerable monks of her order, who practically, they are not so very well known, they may not be scholars, but practically by repetition of the holy name, they have attained the highest possible realization. So this is another new, I mean not new, re-emphasis on the idea that nama, repetition of the nama leads to, it's a very powerful upasana, namopasana. So then we have, as you said, rupa dhyana, we can do other forms of upasana which for which we have to read the divine Leela, we read the Bhagavata, we read the divine stories, not to understand, not to argue, not to speak on it, not to comment on it. These are wonderful books and they may be academically stimulating. But the real purpose of these divine Leelas, Leela Prasanga and all those things, is to do Leela Dhyana. Because ultimately the goal is to somehow focus, make the Ishta the center of your life, of our lives. So if you have to do it, since our mind is always wandering and always has a tendency to be diverted here and there, so why not divert it on the Leela of the Lord? That will give some kind of variety, because it seems for many people that repeating the same name over and over again, it induces a kind of monotony. They think, oh, what is there? And since it is not so easy to, to understand the results of our Namopasana till we get some kind of concrete experience, some tangible experience, people lose faith, people lose patience. Said we have done so many conversations are there in Mayar Katha, the Gospel of Holy Mother, where people come, I have been doing for 6 months, 12, 2 years, 3 years, nothing seems to be happening, I don't see any transformation within. So, and Holy Mother gives them so much of, asks them to be patiently doing the Namopasana. Because, as I said, there are other ways of Upasana, like Leela Dhyana, or when you cannot do Rupa Dhyana, when our minds are not focused enough to focus on the form of the Lord and try to combine it with the name. Nama and Rupa, if they are combined, it is very good. But at least if you focus on the name also, it is good, or the form. So we have the Dhyana mantras, wonderful Dhyana mantras, which are revelations to these great sadhakas who have seen the deities in that divine form as expressed in the Dhyana mantras. So that is another way. So there are thousands of ways of manifesting that spirit within. Leela Dhyana is good for people whose minds are have a tendency, they are not happy with doing the same thing, like punaravriti, repeating can be sometimes monotonous. So it's good as a diversion to read about Sri Ramakrishna. If the mind wanders, let it wander in the different Leelas. So that is a very important thing. If the mind has a tendency to wander, if it is restless, if it wants change, it's always hankering for change, then it's better to read the various divine Leelas right from childhood. That is the reason why this Bhagavata and all these kathas that are there, they have to be understood in that. It's not for getting some kind of knowledge. Of course, it gives you, ultimately the goal is to give you the knowledge which is revealing the truth behind the divine Leela. But in the beginning, in the initial stages, progressively we go from the different aspects of the Leela to the central core message of what that Leela, that particular phase of Sri Ramakrishna's life, Sri Krishna's life, what message it has for us, and how can I practice that? How can I use that message to transform my own life in similar situations? So that is why this entire biography, if you see of these great avatars, if you read minutely, every action is with a purpose. Holy Mother trying to live in the amidst all those people, troublemakers and crazy people, and not losing her mental balance in the midst of all that, and doing japa, These are examples of how to manifest that spirit under circumstances which are beyond our control. Every time things may not be conducive to Upasana. So in the midst of that, this divine play of these great avatars, that is why Swami Sarvasthanandaji says, to understand the divine message, the divine Leela of Sri Ramakrishna, it's important to focus on the sadhaka bhava also. So the second part of the book very extensively deals with what is sadhana. First it explains what is upasana, what is sadhana, and then how Sri Ramakrishna performed these different sadhanas, what were the obstacles he encountered, how he handled them. So all this is part of upasana, which leads to spiritual progress. But the only idea is when they say when we do sadhana, the test of spirituality, or test of spiritual progress, though it's not good, as Holy Mother said, to judge for oneself or judge other spiritual progress, one thing is it enables us to evaluate ourselves, if we can, in the process of this upasana, whether we are reading more and more, progressively reading more and more of spirit into matter. That is very important. That we can easily judge. How much of spiritual values, how much of spirit is being manifested in our daily lives? Is that quality improving? Quantity may not improve. We may still lead busy lives, as Holy Mother did till the end of her life. She led a very busy life. Apparently it was a very, very secular life, cooking, cleaning, and working throughout the day. But if you see that spirit within was manifest more and more patience. As they evolved, as the sadhakas evolve, we find that they get more and more peace. In the same circumstances, similar circumstances, it can be evaluated, at least self-evaluation, self-introspection. We can find out whether we are making our upasana is really effective. Not only the upasana when as instructed by our guru, which is very important, because that is one thing we have to hold on to. The very idea of spiritual initiation in our order is to fix a particular path, not waste our energy doing so many things, attempting so many paths, but fix one particular path and stick to it, and then see how it percolates in our other activities. So that central core sadhana, that's core upasana, that's precisely why spiritual initiation is a must. Because after spiritual initiation, it's like digging wells. Sri Ramakrishna said that there is a tendency in many of us to dig different wells in different places. That way we cannot get water. But if we stick to one place, no matter how dry it is, if we go deep enough, we will get water. That is the idea behind a particular upasana and a particular Ishtanishta, particular Guru-given upasana, that has tremendous importance, at least in the Ramakrishna movement, that Ishtanishta and that sticking to that central upasana and all others based on that, keeping that as the center of trying to reveal more and more Chaitanya or spirit within progressively. Try other methods which our great, in the Ramakrishna tradition, so many wonderful techniques. Thakur Ma Swamiji and the direct disciples themselves, if you read for Seekers of God of Swami Shivanandaji, then Brahmananda's Essentials of Spiritual, Dharma Prasange Swami Brahmananda, where he gives practical guidance which help us how in the different situations and circumstances of life we can continue this upasana, the great worship which is going on. Not only while we sit and do our regular meditation as instructed by our Guru, but try to extend it and see that it complements the efforts that we make and in our core sadhana or core upasana. But as many of our acharyas, when we studied many subjects in the training center, Naturally, we were fascinated by the new subjects, Brahma Sutras, these. We wanted to read something of everything, and it was like a wonderful variety that was offered to us. But one of our acharyas who taught us most of the Upanishads and the subjects, he was very particular. Now I realize why he was every day before the class and after the class, if people found, their minds were diverted a little bit and they tried to come ask him that can we practice this, can we practice that, then he used to go back to the idea that no, just stick to what your guru has told you. For your personal spiritual progress, that is the only way. These things are good to know, but stick to that Ishta-nishtha, that nishtha towards the particular path. So as Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda spoke of Sri Ramakrishna, he was as deep as the ocean, as broad as the sky. These are two contradictory qualities which were combined in Sri Ramakrishna, and he wanted all the followers of Sri Ramakrishna to be like that. Deep in one's own faith, accepting all, being very liberal, accepting that each path, all of these paths are valid pathways to lead to the realization. So in that way we are not fanatic, but at the same time we have the fanaticism of we are deep as the ocean in our own path, without criticizing or without losing that broad universal spirit that is there. That was ideally demonstrated in Sri Ramakrishna, Srimad Sharda Devi and Swamiji. So we have to remember that. So progressively, as Swami Vivekananda said, when we try to realize more and more of this consciousness, awaken this consciousness, then we will reach a stage by the grace of our Ishta, who is Sachidananda in a concrete form, he has come in that form, and sitting within our heart as the Antaryami, which is what Upasana tells us to do through all the rituals, to make us introvert, to focus on the Ishta within and allow him to take control of our entire life in whichever way he wants, in a spirit of Sharanagati. So that allows the Ishta to shower his grace and reveal that consciousness through his grace only. With all the Upasana, all the sadhana, as Sri Ramakrishna used to say, we can pray, we can do a lot of self-effort, we have to do. But ultimately, it is his grace when he decides to reveal himself. At the end of our Upasana, or at the as a culmination of our Upasana, it is the Lord through his grace reveals ourselves, and then we realize the goal of life. That is, as Sri Ramakrishna said, Tomader Chaitanya Hok, let your consciousness be awakened. That was his greatest blessings. I don't think he promised anything else other than that. That is the only blessing. So as we progress, as Swamiji says, when we progressively read more and more spirit into matter, that eternality comes in our life. Otherwise our life is full of confusion because of the transient nature. Everything that is material is transient. We know that, but still we try to hold on to it and try to think that there is a worldly solution to our worldly problems. Swami Yatiswaranji very clearly said in the beginning of his meditation and spiritual life that there cannot be a worldly solution to our worldly life. There can only be a spiritual solution to our worldly life. So the only solution to all the problems, as Holy Mother said, is, in her words, the best, easiest and the best way to solve all the problems of life. All, not just particular problems, all the problems including our spiritual problems. So the easiest and the best way to solve all the problems of life is to repeat the name of the Lord, that is Sri Ramakrishna in that case, when she was referring to one devotee, in silence. So the idea of silence is to stop all the external noise. Upasana is to do that and hope that the Lord who is within will reveal himself. as pure consciousness, pure existence and pure bliss. So that is the whole goal of spiritual life, and that is what Upasana should enable us to do, worship of the Spirit by the Spirit. So the more we try to infuse through various rituals, various methods, various actions, keeping the central theme in mind that we have to worship the Spirit, the highest Spirit by the Spirit, as Ashokanandaji says, worship of the Spirit by the Spirit. So we have to Devo Bhutva Devam Yajet, that is the highest worship. But to reach that stage, we need Upasana. So I am very grateful to Maharaj for Revered Swami Nityanandaji Maharaj, so that I could share a few thoughts of Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Ma Sharda Devi Swamiji and Vedanta on this theme, very important theme, Upasana for spiritual progress. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.
Revered Swami Sarvasthanandaji explained the significance of upasanas in our day-to-day life. He explained how Sri Ramakrishna will become the beacon light in our pursuance of the upasanas, and also he enlightened us with regard to the different aspects of the upasanas. It's a very important, very significant lecture for all of us, the spiritual seekers. We are very grateful to Swami Sarvasthanandaji Maharaj for having come all the way and given this wonderful lecture on the upasanas. Thank you very much, Maharaj. We offer our pranams with fruits and some gift of book. Priyatam Pundarikakshaha Sarvayajneshwaro Harihi Tasmin Tushte Jagattushtam Prenite Prenitam Jagat Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Jai Shri Mahamai Ki Jai. Jai Shri Swamiji Maharaj Ji Ki Jai.